She had not planned for anything unusual that day. For her, the visit to the ranch was supposed to be simple and calm. She had grown tired of city noise, deadlines, and screens. And when a friend mentioned a quiet ranch far from town, she felt drawn to it. The place was known for wide-open land, fresh air, and a peaceful rhythm of life. She imagined long walks, gentle conversations, and the kind of silence that makes the mind feel light again. The ranch was owned by a man people simply called the rancher. He had lived there for most of his life. He was not famous, not talkative, and not the kind of person who tried to impress others. But those who knew him spoke with respect. They said he understood the land better than anyone else. He knew its moods, its dangers, and its beauty. To them, he was someone who listened more than he spoke. When she arrived early in the morning, the air felt cool and clean. The sky was wide and clear, and the sun was just beginning to rise. The rancher greeted her with a nod and a calm smile. He did not ask many questions. He showed her around slowly, pointing out fences, old trees, and grazing animals. Everything felt normal, peaceful, even. As they walked, she noticed how steady his movements were. He did not rush. He did not check his phone. He watched the land as if it were speaking to him in a quiet language. Only he understood. At first, she found this comforting. It made her feel safe, like nothing bad could happen in a place so still and open. They talked about small things. The weather, the animals, how long she planned to stay. His answers were short but kind. He seemed like someone who had learned that words were not always necessary. She, on the other hand, talked more, filling the space with her thoughts. She laughed, enjoying how relaxed she felt. After some time, they moved toward a large, open field. The ground looked flat and ordinary. Dry grass covered most of it, with patches of dirt showing through. Nothing seemed strange. Birds flew above them, and the wind moved gently across the land. Then, without warning, the rancher stopped. He lifted one hand slowly, signaling her to stop too. His face changed, just slightly. It was not fear, but focus. His eyes narrowed, and his body became very still. She almost bumped into him because she had not expected him to stop so suddenly. "What is it?" she asked lightly, still smiling. He did not answer right away. Instead, he looked down at the ground, then around the field, then back at her. The silence felt heavier than before. Even the wind seemed to quiet. "It's too big," he said calmly. She laughed a little, thinking he was joking. "Too big for what?" she asked, but he did not smile. "Just sit," he said, his voice steady and low. The change in his tone made her uneasy. This was not the relaxed rancher from moments ago. This was someone serious. Someone who had seen things she had not. Her smile faded. "Sit? Here?" she asked, confused. "Yes," he said. "Right where you are." Slowly, her heart began to beat faster. She looked around, trying to understand. There was nothing to see. No animal running toward them. No hole in the ground. No sign of danger. The field looked exactly the same as it had seconds ago. "Why?" she asked. He did not answer her question. Instead, he watched her closely, making sure she did exactly what he said. His calm did not make her feel better. It made her more nervous. Calm, she realized, can sometimes be more frightening than panic. She slowly bent her knees and sat down on the dry grass. The ground felt firm beneath her, but something about the way the rancher watched the earth made her doubt her senses. "Don't move," he said quietly. Her hands rested on her knees. She could hear her own breathing now. It sounded loud in her ears. She wanted to ask more questions, but something told her not to. The seriousness in his eyes made it clear that this was not the time for debate. She followed his gaze and looked down at the ground beneath her feet. Still nothing, just dirt, grass, and small cracks from the dry season. She wondered if he was testing her, or if this was some strange lesson about patience or trust. Minutes passed, though it felt much longer. The silence stretched. She noticed that the animals in the distance were standing still. Not grazing. Not moving. Just watching. That was when she felt it. At first, it was barely noticeable. A faint vibration, like a distant truck passing by. She froze. The rancher's eyes sharpened. "Stay still," he whispered. The vibration grew slightly stronger. The ground beneath her seemed to shift. Just a little, like a slow breath. Panic rushed through her chest. She wanted to jump up and run, but the rancher raised his hand again, firm and steady. "Trust me," he said. Those words stopped her. Something in his voice told her he knew exactly what was happening. This was not guesswork. This was experience. She swallowed hard and forced herself to stay seated. Her mind raced with questions. What was under the ground? How big was it? Why couldn't she move? The rancher took a careful step backward, then another. His movements were slow, measured. He never took his eyes off the spot where she sat. The ground shifted again, slightly more this time. Fear wrapped around her like a cold wind, but she stayed still, remembering his words. Just sit. In that moment, she understood something important. The land she thought was peaceful and harmless was not empty. It was alive, layered, and full of things hidden from the surface. And the man standing in front of her was not just a quiet rancher. He was a guardian of this place, someone who knew when to speak and when to stay calm. She did not yet know what lay beneath her. But she knew one thing for sure. This visit was no longer ordinary. She sat still, just as he told her to. Her body felt tight, like every muscle was holding its breath. The ground under her felt firm, yet not fully safe anymore. Her eyes stayed fixed on the rancher, searching his face for answers. He did not look afraid, but he looked deeply serious, like someone handling a delicate situation where one wrong move could change everything. "Is something alive under me?" she asked softly. Her voice shook, even though she tried to keep it calm. He did not answer right away. Instead, he lowered himself slowly, bending one knee so he could be closer to the ground without touching it too much. He placed his palm flat on the earth, a short distance away from her, listening through his hand as much as through his ears. "It's moving," he said quietly. Very slowly. "That's why we still have time." "Time for what?" she asked. "To not make it worse," he replied. Those words made her stomach tighten. Not make it worse meant it was already bad. She looked around again, hoping to see something that made sense. The field still looked normal. The sky was still blue, but the silence felt heavy now, thick like something waiting. He finally looked at her and spoke more clearly. "There are places on this land that look solid but aren't. The ground holds things underneath. Big things. Heavy things. Sometimes they stay quiet for years." Her mouth went dry. "And sometimes they don't?" He nodded once. "Sometimes they wake up." She wanted to stand, to run, to scream, but she stayed frozen. Every instinct told her to move. But the calm authority in his voice held her in place. "How do you know it's there?" she asked. "I've seen the signs before," he said. "Tiny changes, the way the ground sounds, the way animals stop, the way the air feels." As if to prove his point, the air felt different now. Thicker. Warmer. She could feel a faint warmth rising through the ground into her legs. It wasn't painful, just strange and wrong. "Please tell me what to do," she said. "You're doing it," he answered. "You're staying still." He slowly took another step back, careful where he placed his foot. He tested the ground with the edge of his boot before putting weight on it. Every movement was slow, like he was walking across thin glass. "Why can you move and I can't?" she asked. "Because it's already reacting to you," he said honestly. "Your weight, your heat. If you stand up fast, the shift could be sudden." Her heart pounded. "And that would—" "We don't want to find out," he said. She closed her eyes for a second, fighting panic. She focused on breathing, slow and steady, just like he was. In through the nose, out through the mouth. She tried to trust him, even though fear screamed inside her. A soft sound came from beneath her, like a deep sigh. The ground dipped slightly, no more than a finger's width, but she felt it clearly. Her hands tightened on her knees. "I felt that," she whispered. "I know," he said. "It means it knows you're there." Tears filled her eyes. But she did not cry. Crying felt like movement, and movement felt dangerous. "Does it happen often?" she asked. "Not often," he said. "But often enough that I learned to respect it." He told her about years ago, when he was younger and careless. When he thought land was just land. He spoke of a time when a fence had slowly sunk into the earth over weeks, of how animals refused to cross certain spots, of how ignoring those signs almost cost him everything. "I learned that day," he said softly. "The land doesn't shout. It whispers." Another small movement passed under her. She gasped, but stayed still. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we wait," he said. "Waiting is safer than fighting." Minutes passed again. Time felt stretched, like it was no longer moving normally. Her legs began to ache from staying still. But she did not shift. She focused on his face, his calm breathing, the way he never looked away from her. Slowly, the movement beneath her eased. The warmth faded just a little. The ground felt more solid again, though not completely safe. "It's settling," he said quietly. "That's good." She let out a shaky breath. "Can I move now?" "Not yet," he said. "Too soon can wake it again." She nodded. Trust had become her only choice. As they waited, he spoke again. His voice steady and low, like a guide keeping someone calm in the dark. He told her that fear makes people rush, and rushing is what turns danger into disaster. He said calm does not mean nothing is wrong. It means you are giving yourself a chance. She listened closely, holding on to every word. Finally, after what felt like a long, endless stretch, he raised his hand gently. "Okay," he said, very slowly. "Shift your weight to the left, just a little." She did as he said, moving so carefully it felt unreal. The ground did not react. "Good," he said. "Now lean forward, hands first." Her palms touched the dirt. It felt cool and dry. "Stand when I say," he added. Her muscles trembled as she waited. "Now," he said. She rose slowly, her legs weak, her breath shallow. The moment she stood, the rancher guided her backward, step by step, until she was several feet away from the spot. Only then did he relax his shoulders. She looked back at the place where she had been sitting. It looked exactly the same as before. Ordinary, quiet, harmless, but she knew better now. "What was it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He looked at the ground, then at the horizon. "Something big," he said, "and something that reminds us why we should never assume we see everything." She wrapped her arms around herself, shaking now that it was over. The calm field no longer felt empty. It felt watched. She stood there for a long moment, unable to move. Her legs felt weak, like they no longer fully belonged to her. The place where she had been sitting looked normal, almost harmless. Yet her mind refused to see it that way anymore. Every small sound now felt louder. Every breeze felt like a warning. The rancher stayed close, placing himself slightly in front of her, as if his body could somehow shield her from what lay beneath. He did not rush her. He understood that shock does not fade quickly. It lingers, settling deep inside before slowly loosening its grip. "Let's move away from here," he said gently. "Just a little more." She nodded and followed him, step by careful step, until they reached firmer ground near a cluster of old trees. Only then did she feel safe enough to lean against a thick trunk and breathe freely. Her chest rose and fell fast at first, then slowly calmed. "I thought the ground was solid," she said at last. "I never imagined something like that." He looked at her, then at the field. "Most people don't," he replied. "That's why it's dangerous." She wiped her face with her sleeve, surprised to find tears there. "You said you've seen signs before. How did you know this time?" He took a long breath, choosing his words with care. The land speaks in small ways, he said. You feel it more than you see it. A softness where there shouldn't be one. A silence where there should be sound. He walked a few steps closer to the edge of the field, stopping at a safe distance. He pointed to a patch of grass that looked slightly darker than the rest. See that? He asked. She squinted. It looks the same. Exactly, he said. It hides well, but look longer. She stared again, forcing herself to slow down, to truly observe. After a moment, she noticed it. The grass there bent in a strange way. Not with the wind, but against it. The earth beneath seemed just a little uneven. I didn't notice that before, she said quietly. Most don't, he replied. We're taught to walk fast, to look ahead, not down. She thought about how easily she had walked into the field, carefree and distracted, how close she had come to something she still didn't fully understand. What is it? She asked again. Really? He did not answer right away. Instead, he crouched and picked up a small stone. He tossed it gently toward the spot where she had been sitting. The stone landed softly. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ground shifted. It was subtle, but clear. The earth dipped inward, just slightly, as if breathing out. The grass trembled, and a low, deep sound rolled through the soil. More felt than heard. She stepped back quickly, her heart racing. That, he said, is what I was talking about. Her hands covered her mouth. It's huge. Yes, he said. Too big to fight. Too big to rush. She felt a strange mix of fear and awe. Whatever lay beneath was powerful, patient, and hidden. It did not chase or roar. It waited. How long has it been there? She asked. Longer than you and me, he said. The land changes slowly. Sometimes it opens. Sometimes it closes. This area was once deeper, then filled over time. What's beneath didn't leave. It stayed. She tried to picture it. Layers of earth covering something massive and unseen. The idea made her feel small. Has anyone else seen it? She asked. Only a few, he said. And not all of them listened. His voice grew quieter. Years ago, he continued, a worker ignored the signs. Thought the ground was firm enough. Took heavy equipment across it. She waited, holding her breath. The ground gave way, he said simply. The land doesn't forgive impatience. She understood what he meant without needing details. The warning was clear enough. They stood there together, watching the field from a distance. The ground slowly stilled again, as if nothing had happened. Birds returned to the sky. The wind moved freely once more. It's going back to sleep, he said. Sleep? She echoed. That's the best word I have, he replied. It rests until something wakes it. She hugged her arms around herself. And I almost did. Yes, he said honestly. But you listened. That made the difference. They began walking back toward the main path. This time, she followed his steps closely, watching where she placed her feet. Every patch of ground now held meaning. Nothing felt ordinary anymore. As they walked, her thoughts raced. She replayed the moment he told her to sit. How calm he had been. How close she had come to panic. Why were you so calm? She asked. How do you stay like that? He smiled faintly. Because panic feeds danger, he said. Calm starves it. She thought about that. Calm was not the absence of fear. It was control over it. They stopped near the fence line. The ranch looked the same as before, peaceful and quiet. Yet she felt like she was seeing it with new eyes. I came here to rest, she said. I didn't expect a lesson. The land teaches whether we ask or not, he said. She nodded slowly. I won't forget this. I hope not, he replied. For your sake. They stood in silence for a while, listening to the sounds of the ranch. The moment had passed, but its weight remained. She knew now that beneath calm surfaces, great forces could exist. And sometimes, survival depended not on strength or speed, but on stillness, trust, and the willingness to listen. What she did not yet know was that this experience was only the beginning. The rest of the day passed slowly, but her mind never fully left the field. Even as they walked back toward the ranch house, she kept looking down at the ground, noticing every small change in color and shape. What once felt like a simple path now felt like a map filled with quiet warnings. The rancher noticed her careful steps, but did not comment. He knew this kind of awareness could not be taught in words. It had to be felt. Inside the ranch house, the air was cooler. The walls were plain, decorated with old photos of land, animals, and people who looked tired but proud. She sat at the wooden table, while the rancher poured water into 2 glasses. Her hands were still shaking slightly when she lifted the glass, and she had to steady it with both hands. "Drink," he said gently. "It helps." She nodded and took small sips. The water grounded her, pulling her back into the moment. For the first time since the field, she felt a small sense of safety. "I keep thinking about it," she said. "About how close it was." "That's normal," he replied. "Your mind is trying to protect you. It replays what it doesn't want to forget." She looked at him. "Do you ever get used to it?" He shook his head. "No. And I don't want to. Comfort makes people careless." That answer stayed with her. After a while, he suggested they walk again. But this time, along the outer edge of the land, where the ground was known to be firm. She hesitated at first, then agreed. She didn't want fear to control her, but she also didn't want to pretend nothing had happened. As they walked, he spoke more than before. He explained how land changes with time, how pressure builds slowly, how signs appear long before trouble shows itself clearly. He talked about patience, about reading what others ignore. "Most people look only with their eyes," he said. "But the land asks for more than that." She listened closely, asking questions, wanting to understand. She realized he wasn't just talking about the ranch. He was talking about life. They stopped near a small rise overlooking the field from earlier. From this distance, it looked calm again, almost inviting. The sun hung lower in the sky, painting the grass in warm light. "If someone else walked there now," she said, "they wouldn't know." "No," he said. "That's why experience matters." She thought about her life before this moment. How often she had rushed. How often she had ignored small signs because she was too busy or distracted. The thought made her uneasy. Later that evening, as shadows grew long, she sat alone on the porch. The sounds of the ranch surrounded her. Insects, distant animals, the soft wind. All of it felt deeper now, more meaningful. She felt like a guest in a world that did not belong to her. A world that allowed her presence only if she showed respect. The rancher joined her, sitting quietly a few feet away. They did not speak for a long time. "Thank you," she said finally. He nodded. "You listened. That's why you're still here." She didn't argue with that. That night, sleep did not come easily. When it did, her dreams were filled with slow movement, with ground shifting gently, with calm voices guiding her to stay still. She woke before sunrise, her heart racing, then slowly calmed herself by listening to the familiar sounds outside. The next day, she felt different, more aware, more careful. When she walked, she felt the earth under her feet, not as something solid and silent, but as something alive and complex. She spent the morning helping with small tasks, staying close to the rancher, watching how he worked. He tested the ground often, pressing his heel, pausing, listening. What once seemed like habit now looked like wisdom. At one point, she stopped and said, "I think I understand now." He raised an eyebrow. "Understand what?" "Why you don't rush. Why you stay calm." He waited. "Because the land doesn't respond well to force," she said. "And neither do people." A small smile crossed his face. "That's a good lesson." By afternoon, clouds gathered in the distance. The air felt heavier, charged. The rancher noticed immediately. "We'll stay close today," he said. She agreed without question. As the wind picked up, she realized something important. Fear no longer controlled her actions. Awareness did. She was no longer frozen by what lay beneath the surface. She was guided by respect for it. When evening came, and the storm passed without trouble, she felt a quiet sense of strength. Not the loud kind, but the steady kind that comes from learning something real. She knew this experience had changed her, not because of danger alone, but because of the calm that met it. And she knew that when she eventually left the ranch, she would carry this lesson with her wherever she went. Some of the biggest forces in life don't need noise to be powerful, and sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is stop, listen, and sit still. Morning came quietly on the ranch. The sky was pale, and the air felt fresh after the night winds. She stepped outside and stood still for a moment, letting the cool breeze touch her face. The land looked peaceful again, almost gentle, as if nothing unusual had ever happened. But she knew better now. Peace did not mean empty. Calm did not mean weak. The rancher was already awake, moving slowly near the barn. His routine had not changed. That alone comforted her. Life here did not rush to forget what had happened. It accepted it and moved forward carefully. She walked toward him, her steps steady but thoughtful. "I'm leaving today," she said softly. He nodded, as if he had expected it. "You'll take more with you than you brought," he replied. She smiled at that. It felt true. They walked one last time along the safe path, stopping at a point where the field could be seen from afar. The grass moved gently in the light wind. Birds passed overhead. Everything looked ordinary. "It still feels strange," she said, "knowing what's there." "It always will," he said. "And that's good." She turned to him. "Good?" "Yes," he answered. "It keeps you aware." They stood quietly, sharing the silence without fear. She realized something then. The fear she felt before had changed shape. It was no longer sharp and loud. It had become calm and useful, like a guide instead of a threat. "I used to think danger was loud," she said. "Obvious. Something you could see coming." "See loud?" He shook his head slightly. "The most serious things rarely announce themselves." She thought about her life beyond the ranch. The fast streets, the noise, the constant movement. How often she had ignored small signs because she thought they didn't matter. "I won't walk the same anymore," she said. "That's the point," he replied. When it was time to go, he helped her load her bag into the vehicle. They did not shake hands. They did not hug. A simple nod passed between them, full of meaning. "Remember," he said, "stillness can be strength." "I will," she answered. As she drove away, the ranch slowly disappeared behind her. The road stretched ahead, smooth and quiet. She felt different. Lighter in some ways, heavier in others. But grounded, back in the city. Everything felt louder than before. The noise, the crowds, the rush. Yet she moved through it with a new sense of balance. She paused more, listened more, looked down sometimes instead of always ahead. Weeks passed, then months. She found herself telling the story to very few people. Not because it wasn't important, but because it felt personal, like a lesson meant for her alone. When she did speak of it, she didn't focus on fear. She talked about calm, about trust, about listening. One afternoon, while walking through a park, she noticed a section of ground blocked off. Others walked around it without thought. She stopped and studied it. The signs, the soil, the silence. She smiled gently. Not everything hidden is meant to be challenged. She chose another path. That night, as she lay in bed, she remembered the rancher's voice. Steady, calm, clear. She remembered sitting on the ground, heart racing, trusting stillness over panic, and she understood something fully at last. Life often asks people to move fast, to react, to push forward. But sometimes, the right answer is to pause, to sit, to listen. The lesson did not fade with time. It settled deep inside her, becoming part of how she lived. And every now and then, When the world felt overwhelming, she would stop, take a breath, and remember the quiet field and the calm voice that guided her safely through it. What lay beneath had been powerful, unseen, and dangerous. But what she carried forward was stronger, awareness, and calm.